John Carter stood in the massive chamber of Nexus Prime and felt very small. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth, and the council chamber could hold 1 million people. 12 alien species sat around a circular table that seemed to stretch forever. Each alien looked different from the others, but they all had one thing in common. They looked at John like he was a bug that had crawled into their meeting. John wore his best diplomatic uniform and carried the hopes of 8 billion humans. Earth had worked for 3 years to get this moment. First contact with aliens had changed everything. Humanity had dreamed of joining a great galactic community and learning from older civilizations. Today was supposed to be the day Earth became a full member of the Galactic Council. The council speaker was a tall creature called Zethkara from the Veltar Empire. His skin was blue and covered in scales that caught the light. 4 arms moved as he spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal tubes. John's translator device turned the alien words into English, but the tone was clear enough. This was not going as planned. The species known as humans has submitted their application for membership in the Galactic Council, Zethkara announced to the chamber. After careful review, we have reached our decision. John stepped forward. His heart was beating fast and his hands were sweating inside his gloves. Every human on Earth was watching this moment through live broadcast. Children in schools had stopped their lessons. Workers had left their jobs. The president herself was in the Situation Room waiting for news. We acknowledge the existence of humanity, Zethkara continued. However, the Council has determined that this species is not ready for full membership. Humans show too many signs of primitive behavior. Your history is filled with wars. You have damaged your home planet. Your technology advances too quickly without wisdom to guide it. The words hit John like a physical blow. This was not what they had expected. Earth's diplomats had prepared for negotiations about trade routes and military cooperation. They had not prepared for rejection. Honored council members, John said, and his voice cracked slightly. Humanity has come far in recent years. We have unified our planet under one government. We have ended most conflicts. Our technology has brought us peace and prosperity. We are ready to contribute to galactic civilization. Several of the aliens made sounds that John's translator could not interpret. One creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. Another being made of what appeared to be living crystal chimed like bells. The sounds were not friendly. A different alien spoke up. This one was covered in fur and had 6 legs. Young species always think they are ready. You have existed for only a few thousand years. Some of us have been traveling the stars for millions of years. Time teaches patience. Time teaches wisdom. Humans have neither. John tried again. Our scientists have made breakthrough discoveries. Our artists create beauty that moves the soul. Our philosophers seek truth and justice. We have much to offer the galaxy. You have much to learn, corrected another alien. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Your aggression is well documented. Your expansion into space shows the same patterns of conquest and exploitation that marked your early history. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of machinery and the distant sound of ships docking at the station. John realized that his words were having no effect. The aliens had already made their decision before he even arrived. Zethkara gestured with 2 of his 4 arms. The Council hereby grants humanity observer status. You may watch our proceedings, but you have no voice in galactic affairs. Earth is assigned to Sector 7 at the edge of the galaxy. You may develop the systems within this sector, but expansion beyond these boundaries requires Council approval. John felt the blood drain from his face. Observer status was what the Council gave to species they considered barely intelligent. It was a polite way of saying humans were not worth talking to. Sector 7 was known throughout the galaxy as a wasteland. Few resources, no major trade routes, and far from any important systems. Honored speaker, John said desperately, surely there has been some mistake. Earth has prepared for full membership. We have much to contribute to the Council. Our military could help maintain galactic peace. Our scientists could work with yours to solve great problems. Our culture could enrich the galactic community. The insect alien made clicking sounds that John's translator rendered as laughter. Your military concerns us most of all. Humans solve problems with violence. The galaxy needs builders, not destroyers. Other aliens nodded or made their species equivalent of agreement. John realized that everything he said was making things worse. The more he talked about human achievements, the more the aliens saw reasons to keep humanity isolated. Zeth Kara stood up, and his great height made John feel even smaller. The decision is final. Humanity will remain in observer status for a minimum of 200 years. At that time, the Council will review your progress toward civilization. Perhaps by then you will have learned the value of patience and peace. The session was ending. Other business was beginning. The aliens turned their attention to trade disputes and territorial agreements. John Carter and all of humanity had been dismissed like children, interrupting an adult conversation. John walked slowly from the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. Behind him, the aliens continued their meeting as if nothing important had happened. To them, nothing important had happened. They had dealt with a minor annoyance and moved on to real business. The shuttle, ride back to the human embassy, was the longest trip of John's life. He had to send word back to Earth that humanity's greatest dream had become its greatest humiliation. 8 billion people were waiting to celebrate joining galactic civilization. Instead, they would learn that the galaxy saw them as dangerous children who needed to be locked away until they grew up. As Earth grew larger in the shuttle's viewport, John wondered what would happen next. Would humanity accept this judgment and try to prove themselves worthy over the next 2 centuries? Or would they find another way to earn the respect that had been denied to them today? John did not know the answer, but he suspected that the Galactic Council had seriously underestimated the species they had just rejected. Humans did not like being told they were not good enough. They especially did not like being caged. President Lisa Morgan sat at the head of the table in the White House Situation Room and watched the faces of her advisors. The news from Nexus Prime had arrived 6 hours ago, and the shock was still sinking in. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth, and they all looked like someone had punched them in the stomach. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President Morgan said slowly. "The aliens have put us in a corner of the galaxy and told us to stay there for 200 years. "That's correct, Madam President," said Secretary of State Robert Kim. Ambassador Carter was very clear. "We have observer status only. No voice in galactic affairs. No expansion beyond Sector 7 without permission." Admiral Jack Hayes leaned forward in his chair. The head of Earth's Space Force was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. "Madam President, we need to understand what this really means. Observer status is not a stepping stone to membership. It's a cage." Dr. Maria Santos nodded from across the table. Earth's chief scientist had been analyzing alien technology since first contact. "Admiral Hayes is correct. I've been studying the historical records the aliens shared with us. Every species given observer status has remained there. The Cleary have been observers for 800 years. The Thuman for over 1,000. None have ever been promoted to full membership. So this is permanent," President Morgan said. It was not a question. "Worse than that," Admiral Hayes continued. "Intelligence reports suggest the Council actively works to keep observer species weak. They limit technology transfers. They prevent expansion. They create economic dependence. It's not about waiting for species to mature, it's about keeping them as permanent junior partners." The room fell silent. Outside the White House windows, Washington, D.C. continued its normal routine, but the people in this room knew that humanity's future hung in the balance. The decision made here would affect every human being for generations to come. Defense Secretary Angela Brooks spoke up. "What are our options? Do we have any leverage at all?" Dr. Santos pulled up a holographic display, showing Earth's technological progress. "Actually, we might have more options than the aliens think. Our reverse engineering program has been incredibly successful. We've made breakthrough advances in fusion power, faster than light travel and defensive systems. Human innovation combined with alien technology has produced results that even surprise me." Admiral Hayes stood and walked to the display. "Dr. Santos is being modest. Our new fusion reactors are 30% more efficient than standard alien designs. Our FTL drives are faster and use less energy. Our ship designs are completely different from anything in the galactic database. Different how? President Morgan asked. Alien ships are built for comfort and ceremony, Admiral Hayes explained. They have vast interiors, beautiful decorations, and systems designed for long, peaceful voyages. Our ships are built for war. Compact crews, heavy armor, powerful weapons. The aliens design ships like floating palaces. We design ships like weapons. CIA Director Paul Martinez had been quiet until now. Madam President, we have intelligence that might be relevant. The alien species are not as united as they appear. Many of the younger civilizations resent the Council's authority. Some have approached our agents with questions about humanity's rejection. What kind of questions? The President asked. They want to know if we're planning to accept the Council's decision. Several species have expressed interest in trade relationships outside Council oversight. The Nexari delegation actually told one of our people that they wished they had humanity's courage to challenge the established order. President Morgan stood and walked to the large screen showing Earth from orbit. Blue and green and beautiful. Home to 8 billion human beings who deserved better than to be treated like children by alien overlords. Madam President, Admiral Hayes said quietly, we have another option. We could reject the Council's authority entirely. The room went silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was suggesting. Open defiance of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Admiral, that would mean war, Secretary Kim said. We're talking about 12 ancient civilizations with fleets that number in the millions of ships. They've been fighting wars since before our species existed. Maybe, Admiral Hayes replied. But they've been fighting each other. Slow, formal conflicts with rules and ceremonies. They've never fought humans. They don't understand how we wage war. Dr. Santos activated another display. The Admiral has a point. Alien military doctrine is based on intimidation and overwhelming force. They expect enemies to surrender when faced with superior numbers. Their tactics are rigid and predictable. Human military thinking emphasizes speed, surprise, and adaptability. You're talking about David versus Goliath, Secretary Brooks said. I'm talking about a species that conquered an entire planet through warfare, Admiral Hayes replied. Humans understand conflict in ways that peaceful alien civilizations do not. We've been fighting and dying and winning against impossible odds for our entire history. President Morgan turned back to the table. What would such a war look like? Admiral Hayes activated his own display showing fleet compositions and strategic assessments. We couldn't match them ship for ship, but we wouldn't need to. We'd target infrastructure, supply lines, and command centers, hit and run tactics, strike where they're weak and disappear before they can respond. Make them chase us across the galaxy while we tear apart their ability to maintain control. And if we lose? The President asked. Then we lose as free human beings instead of living as prisoners, Admiral Hayes said simply. The room was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a helicopter passed overhead, and somewhere in the distance sirens wailed. Normal sounds of a normal day on a planet that was about to make an extraordinary decision. Dr. Santos spoke first. Madam President, I believe we can build a fleet capable of challenging alien military superiority. Our technology is advancing rapidly, and our industrial capacity is enormous. Give us 2 years, and we could field a force that would surprise the entire galaxy. Director Martinez nodded. Our intelligence networks are already in place. We have contacts throughout alien space. Many species would support us if they believed we had a chance of success. Secretary Brooks looked at the military assessments. The risks are enormous, but so is the potential reward. If we succeed, we don't just free humanity. We free every species trapped under Council authority. President Morgan sat back down and looked at each face around the table. These were the people she trusted most in the world. Military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and intelligence officers who had devoted their lives to protecting humanity. The aliens made one crucial mistake, she said finally. They think we're children who will accept their judgment and try to earn their approval over the next 2 centuries. They don't understand that humans don't like being told what we can and cannot do. Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time since the meeting began. So we're going to build a fleet? "We're going to build the largest military force in human history," President Morgan said, "and we're going to teach the galaxy that humanity will not be ignored." Captain Ryan Bell floated in zero gravity outside the hidden shipyard and watched humanity's future take shape. The massive space dock was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. From the outside, it looked like any other piece of space rock. Inside it held the largest construction project in human history. The EFS Liberty stretched out before him like a metal mountain, 2 kilometers long and armed with weapons that no alien had ever seen before. The ship's hull was matte black to absorb sensor scans, and its angular design looked nothing like the graceful curves of alien vessels. Where alien ships were built for beauty, the Liberty was built for war. "Captain Bell, your presence is requested in Engineering Bay 7, came the voice through his helmet comm. Ryan pushed off from the observation platform and flew toward the ship's main docking port. Around him, dozens of other vessels were under construction. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and support ships, each one designed with human innovation and alien technology working together. The Warfleet had been under construction for 2 years. Every major nation on Earth had contributed resources and personnel. Shipyards hidden on the far side of the Moon, in asteroid belts, and at the edge of the solar system worked around the clock. The largest military buildup in human history was happening in complete secrecy. Ryan docked with the Liberty and made his way through corridors that hummed with activity. The ship's crew was already aboard and training. 5,000 of Earth's best military personnel learning to operate systems that pushed the boundaries of known science. Unlike alien crews that numbered in the tens of thousands, the Liberty was designed for efficiency and speed. In Engineering Bay 7, Dr. Maria Santos was waiting with her team of scientists. They stood around a device that looked like a metal sphere covered in glowing crystals. Ryan had seen many alien technologies, but this was something entirely new. "Captain Bell," Dr. Santos said with excitement in her voice, "I wanted you to see this before we install it. This is humanity's first original contribution to galactic technology." Ryan examined the device carefully. "What does it do?" "It's a kinetic barrier generator," Dr. Santos explained. "Alien ships use energy shields that can be overwhelmed by sufficient firepower. This creates a physical barrier using gravity manipulation. Instead of absorbing energy, it deflects solid objects. Alien plasma weapons will bounce right off." "And our weapons?" Dr. Santos smiled. "Our weapons are designed specifically to penetrate energy shields, magnetic accelerated projectiles that travel at significant fractions of light speed. While aliens are shooting energy beams at each other, we'll be hitting them with chunks of metal moving fast enough to punch through anything." Ryan nodded approvingly. Human military doctrine had always emphasized using different tactics than the enemy expected. If aliens fought with energy weapons, then humans would fight with kinetic weapons. If aliens used energy shields, then humans would use kinetic barriers. "How many ships will have this technology?" Ryan asked. "Every ship in the fleet," Dr. Santos replied, "along with other human innovations, improved FTL drives that are harder to detect, communication systems that aliens can't intercept, and weapon systems that their sensors weren't designed to track." Ryan left the engineering bay and made his way to the bridge. The Liberty's command center was smaller than alien bridges but packed with advanced systems. Every station was designed for maximum efficiency during combat. No wasted space, no decorative elements, everything focused on fighting and winning. Commander Amy Foster was waiting for him with intelligence reports. She was in charge of covert operations and had spent the last 2 years building spy networks throughout alien space. Her teams had established hidden supply bases and recruited sympathizers among oppressed species. "Captain, we're receiving encouraging reports from our agents," Commander Foster said. "The younger alien species are asking questions about humanity's rejection. Some are openly criticizing the Council's decision." "Are any willing to support us directly?" Ryan asked. "Not yet, but several have indicated they would remain neutral in any conflict. The Nexari have gone further and suggested they might provide intelligence about Council military movements." Ryan studied the star charts showing alien space. The galaxy was vast and full of species that had been suppressed by the Council for centuries or millennia. If even a fraction of them supported humanity's cause, it could change everything. What about Council military forces? Ryan asked. Commander Foster activated a tactical display. Their main fleets are positioned to defend the core worlds. They have patrol forces throughout the galaxy, but nothing that could respond quickly to a coordinated attack. Most importantly, they have no idea we're building a fleet. Their intelligence services are designed to watch for alien threats, not human innovation. On the main screen, reports were coming in from other shipyards. The fleet was nearly complete. 50 capital ships like the Liberty, 200 destroyers and cruisers, hundreds of smaller vessels including fighters, bombers, and support craft. The largest space fleet humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Jack Hayes appeared on the communication screen from Earth Command. Captain Bell, are you ready for final systems testing? All systems are operational, Admiral, Ryan replied. The crew has completed training and we're ready for deployment. Excellent. President Morgan has approved Operation Freedom. All fleet elements will move to staging areas over the next week. Once in position, we'll begin the operation to announce humanity's rejection of Council authority. Ryan felt his heart rate increase. After 2 years of preparation, they were finally ready to act. Earth was about to challenge the established galactic order and prove that humanity would not be ignored or contained. Admiral, what are our rules of engagement? Ryan asked. We're not starting a war, Captain, Admiral Hayes replied. We're ending one. The Council has been waging war against younger species for millennia through economic control and technological suppression. We're simply changing the nature of the conflict. Commander Foster brought up intelligence reports on alien defensive systems. Captain, our analysis suggests that Council forces are not prepared for the type of warfare we're planning. Their ships are designed for long-range engagements with slow maneuvering. Our hit-and-run tactics should give us significant advantages. Ryan walked to the forward viewport and looked out at Earth in the distance. The blue and green planet that had given birth to a species the aliens considered too primitive for full membership. Soon, those same aliens would learn that humans had been preparing for this moment since the day they were rejected. The Liberty's engines began their startup sequence. Around the hidden shipyard, other vessels were doing the same. The human fleet was preparing to emerge from the shadows and announce to the galaxy that Earth would no longer accept the role of junior partner. Ryan opened a channel to the entire crew. All hands, this is the captain. In 72 hours, we will jump to our staging position and begin operations. We go not as conquerors, but as liberators. We fight not for territory, but for the principle that all intelligent species deserve respect and freedom. The galaxy will remember this moment as the day humanity refused to be silent any longer. Through the ship, Ryan could hear the sound of 5,000 voices cheering. In a few days, the entire galaxy would hear them roar. The Galactic Council was in full session when space around Nexus Prime suddenly filled with human warships. Admiral Jack Hayes stood on the bridge of the EFS Liberty and watched alien faces turn toward the viewports in shock. 50 human capital ships had appeared from nowhere, using FTL technology that alien sensors could not detect. Council Speaker Zeth Kara was in the middle of discussing trade regulations when his aide whispered urgently in his ear. The tall Veltar's blue scales seemed to lose their color as he processed the information. Around the council chamber, other alien delegates were receiving similar reports from their military advisors. Impossible, Zeth Kara said loud enough for the chamber's audio systems to pick up. Human ships cannot travel to the core systems without detection. Admiral Hayes activated the communication system, and his image appeared on every screen in the council chamber. Behind him, the bridge of the Liberty hummed with activity, as human officers coordinated the largest military operation in their species' history. Honored council members, Admiral Hayes said with a voice that carried no trace of the respect that term usually implied. I am Admiral Jack Hayes of the Earth Space Force. I request permission to address this assembly. The chamber erupted in sounds of alarm and outrage. Zeth Kara's forearms gestured frantically as he tried to restore order. The insect delegate clicked its mandibles so rapidly it sounded like machine gun fire. The crystalline being chimed in, frequencies that made the translation system struggle. You have no authority to address this council, Zeth Kara finally managed to say. Humanity has observer status only. Remove your ships immediately, or face the consequences. Admiral Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. I'm afraid humanity no longer recognizes the authority of this council. We reject your judgment and your restrictions. Earth hereby declares its independence from your galactic government. The declaration was being broadcast across the galaxy through hijacked communication networks. Commander Amy Foster's intelligence. Teams had spent months infiltrating alien systems, and now every species in known space was hearing humanity's message of defiance. Furthermore, Admiral Hayes continued, Earth hereby accuses the Galactic Council of systematic oppression of younger species. You have deliberately prevented the development of dozens of civilizations to maintain your own power. Today, that ends. On the main screen behind Admiral Hayes, evidence began displaying. Documents stolen from Council archives showing how observer species were kept weak and dependent. Communications between Council members discussing how to suppress technological development among younger civilizations. Financial records proving economic manipulation designed to prevent growth. The proof was overwhelming and devastating. Species. Throughout the galaxy, we're learning that their struggles and limitations were not natural, but artificially imposed by the very government that claimed to protect them. Zeth Kara stood to his full, imposing height. This is an act of war against the legitimate government of the galaxy. Human forces will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. We came prepared for that possibility, Admiral Hayes replied calmly. He made a gesture, and tactical displays around the chamber showed the true scope of human operations. Across the galaxy, human fleets were striking simultaneously. Military installations, supply depots, communication relays, and command centers were under attack. The carefully coordinated assault was crippling the alien military's ability to respond or even communicate with their scattered forces. Captain Ryan Bell led the assault on the main alien fleet base at Corvus Prime. The massive installation had been considered impregnable for 1,000 years. Alien dreadnoughts larger than human cities floated in defensive formations around orbital shipyards and weapons platforms. The human attack came from an unexpected direction. Instead of approaching through normal space, the human fleet emerged from FTL directly inside the base's defensive perimeter. Alien ships designed for long-range combat found themselves in close-quarters battle with vessels built specifically for aggressive maneuvering. The Liberty opened fire with magnetic accelerated projectiles that punched through alien energy shields, like they were made of paper. Chunks of metal moving at near light speed created devastating explosions when they hit their targets. Alien return fire consisting of plasma beams bounced harmlessly off human kinetic barriers. Within minutes, the alien fleet was in chaos. Ships that had never been damaged in battle were exploding or surrendering. The base's defensive platforms were designed to stop attacks from outside, not from ships that had appeared in their midst. Back at Nexus Prime, the Council was receiving reports of disasters throughout their territory. Fleet Admiral Kethmore of the Veltar Navy stood before the assembly, with his forearms shaking in what humans would recognize as rage. Council Speaker, the humans have destroyed or captured 60% of our heavy warships, he reported. Their technology is far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Their tactics are completely outside our military doctrine. Other military commanders were reporting similar disasters. The crystalline delegates' harmonious chiming had become discordant with panic. The insect species was making sounds that the translators could not interpret, but the meaning was clear. Fear. Admiral Hayes watched the alien panic with satisfaction. The age of Council dominance is over. We propose a new galactic government, where all species regardless of age or power have equal representation. All civilizations will have the freedom to develop according to their own choices. The proposal was met with stunned silence from the Council, but across the galaxy younger species were responding with enthusiasm. The Nexari delegation announced their support for the human proposal. The Cleary, who had been observers for 800 years, declared their independence from Council authority. The Thuman followed within hours. Zeth Kara looked around the chamber and saw his ancient authority crumbling. You cannot destroy 1,000 years of galactic order. We're not destroying it, Admiral Hayes replied. We're replacing it with something better. Something based on freedom instead of oppression. something where might does not make right. The communication ended and human ships began withdrawing from Nexus Prime. They had delivered their message and demonstrated their power. Now the galaxy would have to choose between the old order of Council supremacy and the new order of species equality. Captain Bell reported from Corvus Prime that the alien fleet base had surrendered. Thousands of alien ships were laying down their arms rather than face destruction by human weapons they could not counter. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The war that the Council expected to end quickly with humanity's destruction was instead seeing alien forces retreating on all fronts. Human fleets supported by rebellious alien species were systematically dismantling the old galactic order. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Liberty and watched as history changed around him. Humanity had been dismissed as too primitive for galactic civilization. Today they had proven that sometimes primitive determination could overcome ancient arrogance. The galaxy would never be the same. Earth had answered the Council's rejection, not with submission but with revolution, and across the stars oppressed species were rising up to join them. Captain Sarah Park stood on the command deck of the EFS Defiance and watched 10,000 alien warships approach the human colony world of New Terra. The massive enemy fleet had come to make humanity pay for their rebellion. This was the Council's final attempt to crush the human revolution and restore their ancient authority. All ships report ready for battle, Captain, her tactical officer reported. The human defense force numbered only 800 vessels against an enemy that outnumbered them more than 10 to 1. By every military calculation, this should be a massacre with the humans as victims. Signal all ships, Captain Park ordered. Today we fight not just for New Terra, but for every species that has ever been told they were not good enough. We fight for the right of all beings to determine their own destiny. The battle began when the alien fleet opened fire at maximum range. Thousands of plasma beams lanced across space toward the human ships. The energy weapons struck kinetic barriers and bounced away harmlessly, while human vessels closed the distance at speeds that surprised their enemies. The EFS Defiance led the charge directly into the center of the alien formation. Human ships were smaller and more maneuverable than their enemies. They wove between the massive alien dreadnoughts like fighters attacking bombers. Magnetic accelerated. Projectiles punched through energy shields and hulls with devastating effect. Admiral Kethmore commanded the alien fleet from his flagship, the Pride of Veltar. The massive vessel was 5 times the size of any human ship and armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. But size meant nothing when the enemy refused to fight according to established rules. Human ships are penetrating our formation, his tactical officer reported. They're using ramming attacks and close-range weapons. Our long-range advantage is meaningless. Admiral Kethmore watched in horror as human destroyers rammed into his cruisers at near light speed. The kinetic energy released by such impacts was devastating. Alien ships that had never been seriously damaged were breaking apart under the assault. Captain Park guided the Defiance through the alien fleet like a sword cutting through paper. Her crew worked with precision born of desperate training and absolute conviction. They knew that losing this battle meant the end of human freedom and the return of galactic oppression. Captain, we're receiving support from Allied forces, her communications officer announced. Ships belonging to the Nexari, Cleary, and dozen other species were arriving to join the battle. The human rebellion had inspired a galactic revolution. The tide of battle shifted as more alien species joined the human cause. The Council fleet found itself fighting not just humans, but half the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed for centuries were finally free to fight back against their oppressors. Admiral Kethmore realized his fleet was doomed when his own ships began surrendering rather than continue fighting. Alien crews that had served the Council for generations were laying down their arms and joining the rebellion. The old order was collapsing from within. All ships cease fire, Admiral Kethmore ordered. We surrender to the human forces. The Battle of New Terra became the symbol that transformed the galaxy. A human defense force outnumbered 10 to 1 had not only survived, but won decisively. More importantly, they had proven that the Council's military superiority was an illusion, based on fear rather than actual strength. Within 6 months, the 1,000-year-old Galactic Council had ceased to exist. Their fleets had defected or been destroyed. Their member species had either joined the rebellion or withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. The old order that had seemed eternal had crumbled in less than a year. President Lisa Morgan stood before the inaugural session of the new Galactic Assembly on the space station Liberty Prime. The station had been built in neutral space using technology and resources contributed by dozens of species. Unlike Nexus Prime with its towering chambers designed to intimidate, Liberty Prime was built for equality. Fellow beings, President Morgan began her address to representatives from over 200 species. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals united in the pursuit of freedom and prosperity for all. The assembly chamber buzzed with the sounds of dozens of different species expressing approval in their own ways. Crystalline beings chimed harmoniously. Insect species clicked their approval. Aquatic creatures made sounds like whale songs. All were united in their support for the principles humanity had fought to establish. The old galaxy was ruled by fear and oppression, President Morgan continued. Species were told their place and expected to remain there forever. Technology was restricted, expansion was forbidden, and dreams were crushed by those who claimed to know better. Admiral Jack Hayes watched from the observation deck as the president delivered the speech that would define the new galactic order. Beside him, Captain Bell and Commander Foster represented the military forces that had made this moment possible. The new galaxy will be different, President Morgan declared. Every species, regardless of age or power, will have an equal voice in their own destiny. No civilization will be condemned to observer status. No being will be told they are not worthy of respect. The speech was being broadcast throughout the galaxy to billions of beings who were experiencing freedom for the first time in their species' history. On worlds that had been suppressed for millennia, new governments were forming. Technologies that had been forbidden were being developed. Dreams that had been crushed were being reborn. Dr. Maria Santos led a team of scientists from 50 different species in developing new technologies that combined the innovations of all galactic civilizations. Human creativity merged with alien knowledge was producing breakthroughs that neither could have achieved alone. The Veltar, who had once looked down on humanity as primitive barbarians, now sought human approval for membership in the new assembly. Former council speaker Zeth Kara himself had requested a personal meeting with President Morgan to formally apologize for his species' role in galactic oppression. Commander Foster established new intelligence networks based on cooperation rather than espionage. Species that had once spied on each other now shared information freely. The fear and suspicion that had characterized galactic relations for millennia was being replaced by trust and mutual support. Captain Park commanded the new galactic defense force that protected the freedom of all species rather than enforcing the will of a few. Ships from dozens of civilizations worked together using combined tactics that emphasized each species' strengths. The transformation was not without challenges. Some former council species attempted to maintain their old privileges. Pirates and criminals tried to exploit the period of transition. Economic systems had to be rebuilt from the ground up, but the new galaxy proved resilient. Species that had been enemies for generations worked together to solve problems. Technologies that had been hoarded were shared freely. Trade routes that had been restricted were opened to all. Admiral Hayes stood in the observation lounge of the Liberty and watched ships from across the galaxy working together to explore regions that had been forbidden under council rule. Human vessels traveled alongside alien craft into the galactic frontier, where new worlds and new possibilities awaited discovery. The irony was not lost on him. The aliens had rejected humanity as too aggressive and primitive for galactic civilization. Those same qualities of aggression and primitive determination had freed the galaxy from tyranny and created a civilization based on justice rather than oppression. John Carter, the former ambassador who had been humiliated at Nexus Prime, now served as humanity's representative to species seeking membership in the new assembly. The Veltar colony of Kethaprima had requested his personal assistance in their application process. The wheel had come full circle. Where once humanity had begged for acceptance, now former council species sought human approval. The difference was that humans granted membership based on a species' commitment to freedom and equality, rather than their age or power. Earth had been ignored at the Council, so humanity had answered with warships. But the warships had brought not conquest but liberation. The galaxy was free, and it would remain free as long as beings remembered the lesson that New Terra had taught, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that no species should ever again be told they were not good enough to determine their own destiny.